I'd like to welcome everybody to another episode here of Behind the Desk, where we interview CEOs, VPs, business leaders, and innovators around the world and how they actually are making an impact. And today we have a guest, Mr. Gary Miller. He is an Olympic alpine ski coach who has spent decades coaching and mentoring elite athletes at the World Cup and Olympic level, behind and blending high-performance sports with a deep understanding of mindset and recovery. Today, he actually channels that experience into HumanCharger and related ventures, bringing innovation, light therapy, technology, and wellness solutions to people who, want to maintain energy, combat jet lag, seasonal fatigue, and really just keep it a high level in everyday life. So,
Brendan, thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be on your podcast. Thank you.
Yes, no, thank you.
This is this is interesting. I mean, I've had a pretty interesting career. I mean, I've been a ski coach for a long time. Grew up as a young kid in the Midwest as a ski racer. Started traveling traveling the world when I was 15 years old, and that morphed into skiing for the University of Colorado, and then moving on to the national team and coaching the Olympians. And so I've traveled everywhere, and of course, one of the ills of travel is jet lag, and then I've started in between some of my coaching stints, is I've bounced around and I've started some of my own companies. I've designed and manufactured products, so I've not only had the sports connection with Europe most of the time, but now it's been manufacturing in Asia. So I'm far enough down the tracks where I've got kind of a wide net of different businesses, and if it wasn't for the businesses that I've started, I couldn't have done them without my background as an athlete and a coach. It was probably one of the best things that I've been able to do is morph that from one into the other. You're brought up with a certain amount of discipline and focus, and it's absolutely essential that you have that today. So that's a little bit my story, and then I was sort of winding down a little bit, and then all of a sudden, my wife and I, when we were in Europe on a ski trip, ran into an old colleague, and he had a bright light device that I knew nothing about, and my wife did. So we took a look at it and thought, oh my God, this is really different. And maybe it's something that would work in the US. And I didn't know much about seasonal affective disorder, which is, a depressive state that happens in the wintertime.
No, because you're always out enjoying the wintertime.
I'm outside. I'm an instant on guy, right? As we talked before, I mean, I'm used to getting up early, and I'm ready, set, go, and she's not. So she tried it and went, wow, I've never had my sleep patterns normalize, and I've been able to get up out of bed right away in the morning, or I have a lull in the afternoon. I can put this device on and get a bump, and it's like, wow, this is fantastic. So one thing led to another. We were skiing with a doctor and his wife from Vail, Colorado, and we had heard rumors from the guy that the business colleague of mine that this device really helped with jet lag. And I'm thinking, oh my God, jet lag. I wish I had something that could fix jet lag. And so we gave it to the doctor and his wife and let him fly home back to Denver from Munich. And he calls me a week later and he says, oh my God. He said, we have had no jet lag. We feel better in the morning. And he says, there's really something to this. And he says, I'm a wellness doc. And he says, I'm going to connect you with our concierge medical team, or it's a group, it's a medical group. And he said, we need to carry this. This is something that we need to have. And that was sort of where it went. And then the more I started to study about the HumanCharger, which is the name of the device, I started to understand light therapy. And I'm thinking, what have I been missing in the coaching world, when it comes to athletes, light and performance. I mean, this product has actually been hiding in Europe for over a decade. And it was a spinoff of Nokia, the phone company. I don't know if you remember.
I do.
Everyone had a Nokia phone until Apple came out with their iPhone. And but Nokia was a little bit asleep at the wheel. They weren't being very innovative, and an engineer and a scientist decided to break off and experiment on light therapy, and that's what they came up with. And they tested it on they went the full gamut. I mean, they had a lot of money backing them from Nokia, and they spent it on researching light with mice, and then they went to humans, and they went to the Finnish hockey team. And pretty soon you have a device that is able to affect your circadian rhythm.
Before, we kind of hopped on here, it was, how much, our bodies are changed by light. We forget the technology that we have is constantly changing the process of which our body is adapting to our circadian rhythm. Tell me a little bit more on how that is impact. I want to come back to where you're at now with what you're doing, but how is that impacting the youth of today? And not only that, but you've got your CEOs that are flying in and out of countries and athletes. I mean, and all the disruptors that we have, and then what this is actually doing back into them.
Yeah, it's a tough one. Okay, so if you go back to the basics of light therapy, right, and circadian rhythm, we traditionally woke up with the sun and we went to bed at night when it got dark. I mean, that's how it worked, and life was grand back then. But that's 40 years ago. Now we've got computers, mobile phones, tablets. We have all these bright light digital devices, which has a profound impact on our circadian rhythm, because it's getting more light than it actually needs, and it's getting light at the wrong time. So in the case of the youth today, it's a real epidemic. I mean, if you talk to people on the school boards, a good friend of mine, school board, he's on the school board in Denver. He says over 80% of the kids are facing depression and anxiety because they're constantly in their phones. It wasn't like in our lifetime when we spent most of our time outside playing, doing sports and other activities, working on cars or doing whatever we did. We didn't have that constant barrage of light in our face. And so it's really had an impact on our youth.
Now, not to interrupt, but you said 80% of youth deal with depression. What a staggering number, especially when I look at how young you see the adolescence of today with cell phones and with technology. It's watching YouTubes or just sitting there as I don't want to call it the modern day babysitter, but half the time, I catch ourselves doing stuff like that. We're busy, so it's, hey, watch this. I mean, that is staggering. 80%.
Yeah,
wow.
It's tough. And what happens is that, these kids, and some school systems, to be fair, are trying to regulate that a bit. You got to look your phone up before, but there's not enough of them that are doing this. And of course, then they go home, and they first thing to do is sit on the couch, or they'll go play a video game. That's been the other one that's kicking them.
Yeah.
And then they crawl in bed at night, and they continue to run through their social media feeds. And pretty soon you got kids that are sleeping 4 hours a night. And that just that just doesn't work. I mean, the human body is not designed for that kind of, light input.
It's very true. And even, my wife and I, was something we always caught ourselves doing. Get in bed, you sit, you look real quick at your social media. And that was one thing we just said, hey, look, at a certain time of night, it gets shut down. We get it out of our sight, out of our mind, because it was drastically affecting our sleep patterns. It was definitely changing how we wake up. Our moods felt totally different. So, yeah, I can only imagine as a young adolescent what that would actually do for you, especially when you're trying to absorb information.
we all love technology. I mean, I'm a big advocate of technology, but I've really had to, kind of watch how I operate with it. Like I'll jump in bed at night and I've got the phone there. And so you learn to have the blue blocking glasses that can shield your eyes from that kind of light. That helps enormously. But it wasn't very long ago where I said, okay, I gotta break this chain a little bit. And I was lying in bed and I turned the light on, put the phone down, and I read a regular book. And I read for quite a while. I read for like 45 minutes. And all of a sudden I was sleepy. It was the best night of sleep I've had in a long, long time. And I thought, maybe there is something to this. So now I've got a couple regular physical books and I'm trying to do more of that. Because we've sort of morphed from watching the news at 6 or 10, right, on the TV for 20 minutes, 30 minutes, and then lying in bed and reading a book and checking out. Now you just jump in bed with your phone.
Yeah, so true. Let's touch base because again, I want my viewers to see, let's go back to kind of day one, right? You got introduced to this product. You really said, hey, look, I think this is something a lot more people can benefit from. How did you get started? What did that look like at, from day one to year one and then beyond from your perspective?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, the first thing I wanted to understand was the science. Okay, what is the science behind this? For seasonal depression, for so many years, people have been using a SAD lamp, seasonal affective disorder lamp, right? It's a big lamp and it's 10,000 lux of bright light and you stare at it. You sit there and you look at it, but you've got to stare at it for 45 minutes minimum, and you've got to be about 6 inches away. It's not the most comfortable thing to do, and it takes time. I mean, in our fast-paced world today, nobody has time to sit there for practically an hour looking at a light.
Yeah.
And there have been some sort of studies done that, that amount of light in your optic nerve isn't that great, but what it's designed to do in as much of a layman's terms as I can make it is that you've got these proteins called opsins in your eyes and it activates those and that triggers the hormones to give you that awake feel, right? And so these guys this engineer and a scientist from Nokia, when they broke off and started studying this, they wanted to find out if there was a better way to get light to those photosensitive regions of the brain that control our hormones. And they started playing with transcranial bright light because you can take the same 10,000 lux of bright light, put it in the ear canal, which has a translucent eardrum. That's your eardrum is translucent. The bone structure around your ear is very thin. Your hypothalamus, which controls a lot of the hormones, is right there. And they figured it was a quicker delivery. And they came up with 12 minutes. So literally, you can put this little device around your neck, put the earbuds in your ears, hit the button, it runs for 12 minutes, and you get 10,000 lux of bright light, same as a lamp, but in 12 minutes, and it's portable. You take it anywhere you want to go. It's going to just wake you up, gives you that blast of light that you need. And of course, that side, from the sports side of it, now we have athletes using it on those types of days. And they're using it to regulate their sleep patterns. And now we've got a coach from the German national team that uses it when he's driving back from the mountain after a training session, and he's tired. It's ski racing isn't the easiest sport in the world. You're outside in the cold all the time, and you're, there's a lot of physical work that's being done, and then you get in the van and you're like, 30 minutes down the road, you start to doze off.
Yep.
And he pops that thing in, and he's like, oh my God, within 20 minutes he's wide awake, and he says it's not like having an espresso or a Red Bull or something. It's sustained energy. It doesn't crash. and he's totally sold on it. And he said, you know, the other thing that he just discovered was that when he uses it and he is trying to, you know, talk to his athletes and describe a particular facet of their technique, he can articulate it better when he's used it. His focus, and that's the thing. When I use the HumanCharger, I'm way more focused. Whereas if I don't, I'm a little bit, you know, I have a tendency to drift a little bit. So on the athletic side, it was actually a no-brainer. And then, okay, so then going into jet lag, okay, which is a huge issue. And they just had a study that came out, I think it was maybe in 2024, that linked jet lag with liver cancer, if you can believe that. So it's like, okay, you know, obviously you'd have to be flying a lot, but we had an issue back in 2014. I went back to the national team. I was with the women's team this time. Our first World Cup race is in Levi, Finland, which is right up at the Arctic Circle. We're training in Vail, Colorado, and the head coach, my direct boss, wanted to go 2 days before the race. And I said, wrong, you don't want to do that. I said, you're going to need at least 4 days. And he's like, no, we can't afford to lose the training here. And I said, it's not going to end well, man. It's cutting it too close. But he's the head coach. He's making the decisions. So we leave 2 days before. We fly from Denver to Boston, immediately run into weather issues. So the flight's delayed. Then you finally, we get into Helsinki, and we got to take a flight up to Levi. And we're up there, and it's, of course, Levi has, the sun comes up in the morning about 10, and goes down about 2.
Yeah.
But these, you know, we arrived the night before the race. They were hammered, totally hammered. Worst performance that they had the whole season. In fact, our star athlete, who should have won the race, she's won it 7 or 8 times already, and she should have won it. You know, it cost her a huge payday. You know, I think she ended up 7th or 8th or something. It was horrible. And of course, you know, these are the kinds of things that are easily preventable if you can use. So again, we started doing more studies with athletes back and forth across the pond. And again, circadian rhythm is light cues. You know, if you get light at the right time, and if you're flying from Chicago to Munich and you're going across 6 time zones, or 7, you know, Chicago's 7 time zones, you know, you're going to be screwed up for a few days. Normally they say it takes 1 day per time zone. Most people are better at handling it than not. And so all you have to do is use this device when it's you arrive in the morning, you put it on, and you use it every 2 hours, 4 to 5 times a day for the first 2 days. And all that's doing is resetting your circadian rhythm. It's just advancing your biological clock to fit your new destination. And we've got hundreds of people now using this thing on traveling, whether it's eastbound, westbound, Asia, Europe, doesn't matter. They don't have jet lag. There is no jet lag.
That's incredible.
Absolutely. I would have given anything to have that for all those years of traveling. It makes a huge difference.
What was your biggest challenge when you took on this opportunity as an entrepreneur, as a, you know, it's not a new product, obviously, but it is to the States. What was your biggest challenge? And actually, what continues to be your biggest challenge currently right now in your business?
Great question, because there's 2 parts of it, really. It's getting the awareness out. It's people, like you said, people in the U.S. haven't seen this product. It's been hiding in Europe. And we thought it's too good to be hiding in Europe. And you know, Americans are a little bit funny because we kind of like our traditions and we like the way we do certain things.
Yep.
but it's to our detriment because other parts of the world are way more advanced than we are. And there are a lot of people in America don't want to hear that, but they're way more advanced. And it's getting that awareness out. It's convincing people that if you're a traveler that wants to go to Europe for a week, and you've been saving for that trip of a lifetime, why do you want to blow 3 or 4 days feeling miserable right out of the gate? I mean, that doesn't make any sense. Even worse is the corporate traveler, the executive that's flying back and forth between Asia and the U.S. or the U.S. and Europe, and then they've got to go into the boardroom, and they've got to either work on a merger, or they've got some high profile. There's a reason why they're there, and they're not sharp. They're dragging. They're falling asleep, halfway through the day, and there are statistics out there. When we started looking at the statistics of the millions of dollars that are lost in productivity due to jet lag, it'd stagger a moose.
I can only imagine.
It's crazy, right? So the biggest challenge is being able to convince the American public that, hey, there's a really simple, affordable device out there that's, you throw it in your purse, your pack, or your briefcase, and away you go, that can really help you feel better. And it's safe. It's not taking a drug. It's not, Americans are a little bit hooked on the prescription program. They think that a drug can fix this. Yeah, you can fly to Europe and punch through the day and struggle a little bit and then take some melatonin at night, but it's not going to fix the problem because it all revolves around light.
So it sounds like educating your consumer is one of the biggest problems. What would you say is the second largest problem that you have within this business right now?
There's probably more than that, Brendan. I mean, I'll take some sectors. Okay, you've got corporate in flying. You've got the athletes. Okay, athletes have been a little more open to doing this because performance to them is everything, and they have to at the elite level. I'm talking about because they can't, they can't take stuff that might, when they pee in the cup, that's going to throw a red flag up. They've got to be really careful. So light therapy is really important for them, and they've been way more open to it. The medical sector, it's crazy. You either find a doctor. We've got a plastic surgeon in Florida that swears by it. He says it's the best thing I've ever had. He said, I've got delicate surgery. I use it to stay sharp. Real simple. But you've got other doctors that won't touch it for whatever reason, or they don't look at it, they don't take it seriously. And you've got all the support staff, the nurses. Think of the nurses in America that are really, they're the backbone of the medical community. And they're overworked, they're stressed out, they're unhealthy, and this device could change everything for them. And a lot of them are shift workers, which is another category. It's the shift workers. It's the people that are working the assembly lines, the Amazon warehouses, oil companies. We tried to approach some oil companies. It's like, it's a bit of a dangerous thing out there. You're working on an oil rig.
Absolutely.
And you've got big machinery, and you're working at nights, and it's really hard. And not only that, shift work, or what they typically call today social jet lag, is health-wise is produces a lot of maladies. I mean, there are a lot of people that get sick because they're shift workers.
Yeah.
And the bodies just can't adapt. And all you need is a little simple device like the HumanCharger to change with light that just, like you would do traveling for jet lag. If you go to work at, say, maybe 7 or 8 p.m. and you work till 5 in the morning, okay, all you're going to do is the same thing. You're going to use the HumanCharger at night 4 or 5 times. So you stay awake during your night shift, and you go home and you sleep during the day, and then you do it again the next night, and then you're on the night shift. Okay. Once your 5 days of the week are done, you go back home, you just reverse it. And then you start using the HumanCharger at home when you want to be awake. And but what it does is it biologically keeps your body functioning the way it was normally meant to function.
Yeah. So really, I mean, to summarize what you're saying, like, again, it really sounds like the marketing end, which, trying to get that educational material out there, trying to reach out to the right clientele, to keep it as an aid, not necessarily within the medical world, but to aid in the health of a human without trying to cross too many borders and boundaries there. Which, very, very challenging, I'm sure, because you have your warehouses here in the States, in Florida, if I remember saying, is getting the product distributed a part of, what you guys are trying to overcome weekly, daily? Is it, the revenue? Like, hey, we're always looking for revenue. Tell me a little bit of those kind of like pitfalls and things that if you had a magic wand to say, boom, we could fix this portion of our business, what would that be for you?
The operational side from, the distribution, warehouse, shipping, all that stuff, that's the easy part because we're really good at it. Americans are really good at doing it. Okay. Yeah. The biggest hurdle, especially if you look at the medical industry or you look at oil and gas or trucking's another one. You want to have a bunch of semi-truck drivers out there that are, trying to stay awake.
Yeah.
And it's regulations. That's the biggest one. You to try to get through to understand that this is not something that needs to be regulated by the FDA. It's not a medicinal product. It's a total natural. It's like going out and staring at the sun every morning for 15 minutes. You could, if every day was sunny and you could go outside and put something over your eyeballs and just put your head up there, but obviously you're suffering from their skin cancer issues or whatever. But what I'm saying is that the light you're getting can solve a lot of those issues, but that's not the way our world operates. Most people get up in the morning and they're lucky to, run through the shower to get a rinse and throw their clothes on, grab a donut and a coffee and run out the door, and they race to work. And then they're sitting at their desk under horrible lighting for 8 hours a day. And you're like, you just need something really simple.
Yeah.
And think of the healthcare costs. These corporations, what they're having to pay to care for their employees, and all they have to do is have a simple device that keeps them a little bit healthier, keeps the biology of the system working the way it should be working, like we did 40 years ago, when I think we had fewer medical issues back then. Just people were healthier.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not healthy today.
Technology definitely, it's got its pros and cons, advancement, but, there's drawbacks, obviously, that we're now learning as we enter into this, next era of technology. And I really think there's tools out there that, like you offer, that are really going to impact a lot of people. And I step back and look at the comment you made about, hey, it's the high execs, right? It's the guys flying in and out, making huge business deals that maybe they could have had 1 or 2 extra percent, or they lost it because they just weren't as sharp. And that impact is, as you said, millions of dollars that add up because of jet lag and all the other things that happen within our human bodies. So it's fascinating to kind of see that if you could, reach out to one of your clients and say, hey, what would you really, how would you give me a 5-star review? What do you think that would sound like from their perspective and what they've actually received in this benefit?
Well, I think, the reviews that we get a lot of them for travelers. with deregulation of the airlines a long time ago, I mean, flying was pretty nice. Okay. But, if you're going to, with deregulation, it's basically the airlines have had to cut back on a lot of amenities that we got used to and to keep the prices lower. So the lower your airline tickets are, you've got more people traveling today. You hear about all this stuff that goes on these planes. I mean, you've opened up the demographic of people flying is way deeper than it ever was. I mean, you're getting people that would never have flown before because the tickets were too high. They drive instead. Now they're flying. So there's more people out there flying. And I think it's just somehow they have to open their mind to things like this that can naturally help them operate better. That's the biggest challenge. It's just to convince people that there are things out there that can help you become better. I guess it was a no-brainer for me because as a coach, I want to help athletes, but I also want to help my fellow man, and I want to help people that travel and do other things. That there is something out there that can really benefit, and keep you healthier.
Yeah, it's probably, if I may interject a little, it's probably almost that like too good to be true factor that there's misconceptions and skepticism about a product like this that we're so embedded in a society. I'm sure like just trying to fight against that has got to be on a top level of difficulties currently with you guys.
Oh, it is. I mean, I had one the other day, and he's a guy up in Montana, and I don't really believe that light can permeate the brain and do that. And I'm like, I have studies to back it up. And he says, really? And I said, yes. So I sent him the studies. And it's the first thing that these guys did in Finland. They found that with the mice, that the brain can be affected because light will go right through your skull. And it goes faster through your eardrums, through your ear canal, than it does through the skull, but it'll go through the skull. They've proven this. I mean, this is technology that's been around for 12 to 15 years, and it's been proven that it works. So, but there are some skeptics out there. But I guess it boils down to a little bit of a pain point, Brendan. I mean, if you're making a couple trips to Europe and you feel like crap doing it, you're going to maybe go, okay, maybe I better give it a try. And we've had a lot of those. We've had a lot of people just go, wow, it works. It works really well. And there's a gal in New York. She works for, I think it's Goldman Sachs, high level executive, heard about it. And I said, try it. You won't believe it. She said, I'm going to Europe in a week with my husband. And she came back and went, oh my God, it completely changed my life. And then she went and bought, 4 or 5 of them for Christmas gifts this year for her family. And that's kind of what we're seeing. We're seeing people that are willing to take a little bit of a shot because the medical alternative just isn't there.
No. Which it's sad that we put so many restrictions and breaking points on things like this when, all it takes is somebody to say, hey, let's get that in, right? Let's try it. What's the worst that's going to happen? It benefits the human, But I that kind of brings me, like when you guys look at it as a, I don't know, let's say like the bandwidth of like mission-driven business of what you do, where do you feel the most tension, right? Like, is it the cash flow? Is it the focus of the product? Is it hiring, or is it just like time and bandwidth with utilizing a product this and getting it to market?
It's getting it to market. That is definitely the big deal. Now, you could go out and spend, the hard decision is you could go out and spend, hundreds of thousands of dollars on advertising. But we looked pretty deep into it, and it's like your ROI on that is just not going to be great, at least initially. I just don't, because I think the science is misunderstood. I don't think there's been enough of that. You got to think a little bit about our society. Our society has been so based on prescriptions. I mean, if you watch TV every night, okay, you're going to see some new drug. You got some funky name, some new drug that does this, right? And then the next morning you turn your TV on again, and then it'll be some law firm that's saying, well, if you took this drug, and you had an adverse reaction, we can get some money for you. It's this wild, vicious cycle of the pill, and it's America's society. The pill will cure all, and in Europe, it's completely different in Europe. You can't walk into a convenience store, a gas station, or even a grocery store and buy a bottle of 300 ibuprofens. And if you go back, Brendan, into when the Sackler family and Purdue Pharma, they knew this. They knew that the Americans were a captive audience, and they were able to get people to buy into this OxyContin stuff. Just crazy.
How are you guys combating, right? Like, how are you implementing within the business strategies to overcome these obstacles?
Yeah, that's a tough call. Again, we use social media as much as we possibly can. And we publish as many articles as we can. We're trying, because you have to educate people. And thank God for guys like you that I can be on a podcast that will reach, a lot of people, a lot more people that want to understand the science. Because I think that's the biggest part, is people don't understand the science.
Yeah, it's hard to educate. I read a quote once, and it was along the lines of, it's easier to convince you of a lie than to convince you've been lied to. And so, even if we're wrong, we don't want to believe that there's something better, because, hey, you're right. These pills, or this prescribed, my doctor said, and I don't ever question doctors. That's why they went to school. They're way more educated in their field than I would ever be. But, sometimes it's, the pharmas, like you said, and things that we're trying to fight against. There's a lot of, which is why you're seeing concierge medicine and a lot of these practices step away and say, hey, look, I think there's better alternatives.
Listen, concierge medicine is really good. That's, I know it's for a certain category of people, right? Because it's normally a monthly fee that you pay to a lot of these, but they were one of our first clients.
Yeah.
They're like, we try to promote wellness to our clients, and that's really important, because we do have a lot of executives that fly around the world, and we have people that take vacations and do this kind of stuff, and that's what was appealing to them, because we had a product that could really better their lives. It was just a completely different model, and I think that concierge medicine model is great, and that's going to only grow. The wellness industry is I think it's a couple $2 trillion a year, and they figure in 10 years it'll be $3.5 trillion. It's, and I'm hoping that, with the HumanCharger, there'll be a good place for it in that wellness group. That's where we're targeting right now is these wellness programs, because it's teaching people how to eat better and to exercise, get out and move, and use light therapy, because it's natural. You get that going for you, and all of a sudden you'll start to notice changes. You'll just feel better. You'll just feel better. It's fantastic.
I love it. Where do you see your business? Where do you see the product 3-5 years from now?
I would hope, like I said, we've got a lot of sectors we're going into. I'd like to see more people use it for travel. I mean, whether it's corporate executives, I think that's a big push for us. We've partnered with a nutraceutical company to do a C-suite package that will allow people to use the HumanCharger and take a good nutraceutical every day. Because instead of running out of the house, like I said, with a donut and a coffee, you take a good slug of a nutraceutical, and you know that at least the nutrients in your body. Put your HumanCharger on as you're driving to work, and all of a sudden your world is a completely different thing, or instead of running down to the coffee shop and at 3 p.m. when you're dogging it, you'll save yourself some money. Just throw the HumanCharger in your ears and give yourself a boost. I mean, things like that. So I think the aviation, the travel side is one. I'd like more sports teams looking at it. We've got an NFL team that used it last year and loved it. We've got MLS is looking at it. We haven't even scratched the surface with collegiate or NBA or MLB. And it's interesting on the MLB side. There was a study done probably maybe 6 or 7 years ago that was on pitchers. Okay. And if the Oakland A's were playing the Yankees in New York, okay, this scientist that did this study recommended that they send the pitcher 3 days in advance to New York. Okay, versus going with the team. And because his performance would be off. The trouble is with studies is that the average person never sees them. They might get read by a few professionals in the industry, but it never really sinks in. Yeah. So we're starting to work with companies that are connected in the sports arena with mental performance, a lot of mental performance. And we're looking at getting into the collegiate market because you solve two problems there. You've got student athletes, which are under enormous amount of pressure today. Not like it was when I was a collegiate athlete at Colorado, University of Colorado. It was stressful enough as a D1 athlete. But now with NIL, with conference realignments, these guys are traveling more than they've ever traveled before. So to be able to have aids like this to keep you on schedule, because you've got to train, you've got to go to school, you've got to go to exams, you're flying this place and that place. It's tough. So we in 3 to 5 years, I want more sports teams using it. I want to see shift workers using it in the warehouse. It's safer to be using it. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And of course, the medical side of it, it's just there's so many layers of regulations. I think it's going to be a tougher challenge. But man, if we could find one really good top-notch medical group, I guess, and it may end up being more concierge stuff, but if a good, strong medical group would say, wow, yeah, I really would like our 50 nurses to be able to be ahead of the curve and be healthier and happier and more, you don't want accidents to happen. You're there because of an accident. You don't want them to have the accident, right? When they're trying to fix you. So it's like, if that's going to kick it off. It's going to take a couple of those, maybe a few heavy hitters to just go, hey, right?
Yep.
I mean, even the NFL, Brendan, okay? Roger Goodell comes on and says, hey, I want 16 games in Europe or outside the U.S. in 5 years. I mean, the toll that it takes those guys fly in and have to, keep their circadian rhythm at top notch. I mean, it's not easy.
No, couldn't only imagine.
Yeah.
It's incredible what you bring. I'm sure our viewers are going to love this information. I want to thank you for taking the time out of your day. I know you're busy. I know you're in another country right now, and for really kind of diving deep into what your product has to offer, what we can do with it as a consumer, and then what the actual benefits are. Everybody, Mr. Gary Miller, if you have any questions, you can DM me directly, or you can always reach out to him. We will list some website information on our end for you when we get this posted. But I want to take the time, just thank you so much for joining me today, for allowing our viewers to express what you, or at least see and express interest in what you're doing. And man, we wish you just all the best luck, and congratulations as well.
Well, Brendan, thank you so much. I mean, to have a platform like this, it's just what we talked about. I mean, this is going to get it out to the people that are interested in being healthy, and no, I can't thank you enough. This is wonderful. So I really appreciate it.
Awesome. Thank you so much. We really appreciate it. Again, thank you for joining us with Behind the Desk, an in-depth with CEOs, VPs, innovators, and business leaders. Thank you again.